What is it like being a Jamaican in Switzerland? Hi, I'm Xavier Murphy, the founder of Jamaicans.com. Today in Jamaicans to the World, we talk to Enza, a Jamaican who's living in Switzerland. Enza, how are you? Welcome.
Thanks. I'm doing good. Looking forward to chatting with you.
So, what part of Jamaica are you from?
Well, I was born in Kingston, but lived there, I think, 2 years of my life, and then moved to, well, about 15 miles out of Montego Bay to my grandmother. And then around 10 or so, I moved into Ocherias to live with my mom.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
okay. So you went to the two cities. Basically, you did the Kingston and then the Montego Bay and Waterbury.
Exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, how long have you lived in Switzerland?
It's actually amazing how time flies. I've been here 27 years this month, actually. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us the story on how you got to Switzerland.
Well, I think whenever you get, especially off the beaten path, because Switzerland isn't really, the go-to place, then I suppose whenever that happens, it has to do with love. And so in the first instance, that's what happened and what brought me here. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So it was a love story that brought you there.
As in maybe 95% of the cases, I'm not quite sure.
So then you just said, let me settle, settle here.
Um, yeah, interestingly enough, no, the original plan was not to settle here. The original plan was actually to go back to Jamaica. But then, kind of life happened and I started doing music here. And, then you got into different, the different obligations. And so, yeah, like I said, life happened and plans changed as they do.
So tell us a little bit about that. Being a musician, a Jamaican musician there in Switzerland. Were you doing
Mhm.
Jamaican music? Were you doing other types of music? What type of music were you doing in Switzerland?
Hmm. Well, they're very big on reggae here. But they tend to like more like the roots reggae, so the Bob Marley type of reggae. Although they're also into their Sean Paul and Sizzla and things like that. Um, However, when I started doing music here, it was not reggae. I started as a studio musician, and I was doing jazz and R&B, soul, kind of like stuff like that initially. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So did you eventually get into doing any type of reggae while doing the music?
I did. There's a very popular Swiss reggae artist called Famara, and I did some collaboration with him. And actually, whenever I had concerts or small tours, I would accompany him and do a kind of a collaboration. So that was quite interesting because it was, being here, it was an all white band. And you're thinking like, I'm not sure if they'll get this reggae thing down at all, the drum and the bass line. But I must say, didn't do a bad job at all. At times I kind of felt like I was at home almost.
It's not surprising. My dad is a musician who occasionally tours, and
Hmm.
he'll tell me, he says he's just amazed by how he tours does Europe really. He does
Right.
maybe once a year. He's rock steady ska tenors, and he would tell me how surprised he is at how quickly they pick up on the bass line, on the music, and
Mm,
they're absolutely just awesome.
right. Yeah, they
So
are, must say.
I'm following along the music lines now. So did
Hmm.
it get to the point where people recognized you on the street as the lady in that particular band?
They did. Um, yeah, because I was, I guess, the spot of color in in the band. So not difficult to recognize me. Yeah. But then afterwards, I because at that time I was doing my own stuff plus collaborating with him. And but then the thing is, in Switzerland, it's kind of a tricky thing to live solely from the music business. And so I had to at some point then kind of decide, hmm, okay, does this make sense really? However, before having had to make that decision, I then went to Jamaica, and had the fortune to meet Mikey Bennett, who, kind of, in a way, took me under his wing. And, I learned a lot during that period of time that I was there at Grafton, and, met lots of other musicians, and was kind of in that whole, you know, um, situation and scene, and it was really cool. I liked that a lot, but you
Like,
had duties. Yeah, so unfortunately, I wasn't able to kind of really delve into that.
right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, we obviously still have contact, and it's
Good,
not totally out of the question that something might still happen.
good. Well,
Mm.
good to know. Good to know. Can we search
Mm.
you on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find some material at the moment. So, like I mentioned before, I had to decide at some point,
Right,
is this lucrative or
right,
not?
right,
And then I had to come to the conclusion, not really, unless, I decide to just kind of give everything up, basically,
right,
and go live a touring life and whatever. And I didn't see myself really doing that at that point either, because I also had a son, and clearly, you then have to make some decisions once children are involved. So you have to be sensible.
I
Uh,
hear you. I hear you. So,
and
so
so,
speak.
yeah.
So speak. Go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
Yeah. So I then decided, okay, I can't live off this, basically. So I decided to train to become a teacher,
Okay.
a language teacher. And so that became my day job, basically. And But I mean, when you love music and it's a part of your life, you can't not do it. And so I left it for about a year or so, and then I just got really itchy, and had to
I
go
hear
back
that.
to it. However, not as a front person, because I just didn't have the time for that.
Right.
So what I do now is to basically support. So the first Voice of Switzerland winner, I support her when she has concerts, when she's on tour, stuff like that.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. So, you still
So,
have your foot in the water, but not.
so a couple of things you touched on. First, I want to talk. You have a son there.
Hmm.
Um, is how aware of he of his Jamaicanness? Was he born in Switzerland? Was he aware of his Jamaicanness? And
Mm-hmm.
do you do things to keep him into his Jamaicanness? Tell us a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is he aware of his Jamaicanness? Yes. So much so that once when he was younger and he was in kindergarten, and they had a kind of a parent get together thing, and the children, then they had to introduce themselves because it was the first year, and they had to introduce themselves and say something, their hobbies and whatever. And he said he's Jamaican and a little bit Swiss. I thought that was hilarious. I loved that. So, obviously clear what he identified with. And his name is Marley.
Okay. Well, and on the language, you're saying you're a language teacher.
Mm-hmm.
What language do they speak? Is it German or French? What are you teaching English? And
Yeah.
give us a little bit about that. And have you learned any other languages?
Right. So first of all, Switzerland is very unique in that it's a small, well, relatively small country, um, but they have four languages that are spoken here, like in different parishes, I guess you could call it. And so you have German or Swiss German, you have French, you have Italian, and then there's a language that's unique to Switzerland called Romansh. That's kind of like sounds a bit like Italian mixed with German somehow. Um, so there are those four languages. In the area where I live, there's they speak Swiss German, but I teach English to the people here.
Okay.
As to your question, if I speak any of those languages, yes, I speak Swiss German. However, when you move to Switzerland, for example, let's say the Swiss German area of Switzerland, you initially learn High German. Now, the equivalent is possibly broken English and English, although I think it kind of depends, because like Jamaica has different types of patois, or different, how do you say, variations on patois. You also have that in Swiss German as well, right? So the equivalent can vary. However, so you learn High German, but in the end, you're actually learning two languages, because when you speak High German to a Swiss German person, they'll understand, yes, but then they have problems. They're uncomfortable answering you in High German. Also, historically, they have some beef with the Germans, and whatever. That plays
Okay.
into it as
Okay.
well.
I get.
So you learn High German and Swiss German basically when you live here. Yeah.
I see.
Mhm.
So how are Jamaicans viewed in Switzerland when someone comes up and they how are they viewed? How you think Jamaicans are viewed?
Actually, in a very cool way. I would say thanks to Bob Marley, first of all, because he is the ambassador. And like I mentioned before, they love reggae music, roots reggae, i.e., Bob Marley. So, so that's the first thing. Then, secondly, it's also well known as a beautiful tropical island, beaches. Of course, Usain Bolt, and. So it's quite um, you're quite well received.
Okay.
as a
Well, good.
Jamaican. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the people, how would you describe the people, the Swiss people? And again, I know Switzerland. I visited
Mm-hmm.
twice, actually, came through twice. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's probably, well, I came through Geneva, which is probably more international than, and I don't know where if you are in a place where it's more less international. But how
Mm-hmm.
are the people? Describe them. What would you say?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, first of all, as to where I'm located, I'm in Basel, and it's not as international as Geneva. Definitely not. However, on this, compared to other places in Switzerland, I would say it would be among the top three international places in Switzerland, because we're on the border to um, Germany and France. We have, the big multinational pharmaceutical companies here, Novartis and Roche, which of course attracts lots of expats and so on. So it's pretty international here in Basel. And so as far as the Swiss are concerned, I think in general, what I would say about them is that they're very reserved. So and you notice that a lot especially if you come from the Caribbean, because we make contact very easily. You can just step out your door, you walk, you don't even have to walk, a couple of meters, and you're already in conversation with somebody. That's how easy it is for us. And here, that just does not happen. And I had to learn that pretty quickly at the beginning when I came here, because went out the door, saw someone walking by, saying hi, and they kind of look at you like, do I know you, kind of thing. So, so that was a bit of a, okay, I guess this does not work like this here. So they need time to kind of check you out, see if you are okay. And I think they're very careful in general with everything. Um, and Yeah, and
Okay,
so that whereas that can have its positives, it obviously has the negatives as well.
I see. I
Yeah.
see.
However, I would say though, if once they decide that you're okay and they kind of take you into their circle, then you're in.
So, what's an activity that you love doing in Switzerland? What's something you love doing there?
Okay, well, one thing I must say, Switzerland is not a party place, So like
Right.
in Jamaica or Caribbean, we have carnival and we have, these jump ups and, stuff like party every weekend. Well, it doesn't really exist here. Um, However, I mean, there are, clubs, and there are the thing that people do here generally on a weekend, for example, is meet up with friends and they go out to a bar, and they, or they go out for dinner and they sit and chat. Maybe they go to the movies, something like that.
I see.
Um, yeah, so it's that's also quite reserved. It follows the line. um, Although I must also say though, over the years, it's kind of they've kind of opened up a bit and trying to do so. There's something called the street parade that happens in August, where really millions of people now actually. I think they reached the million mark last time in Zurich, where they play, house and techno and whatever. So they are trying to loosen up a bit. I mean, as for so yeah. So to be honest, there's not like there are tons of activities like that to choose from. However, if you're a nature lover, um, then this is the place to be.
You know, there's one thing I learned from a friend of mine. I visited Germany, and that
Hmm.
was the first time I visited Switzerland. And they say, um, people from a Western culture, we love to do multiple activities for the night. You know, we go to a movie, we go to a party, and you were saying,
Mm,
no, dinner. If we go to dinner, we chat with our friends. That is the activity for the day. It's done.
yeah,
That's it. If we go to a movie, it's just the movie. That's the activity.
exactly. If you're lucky, you have drinks after the movie, but it depends how late the movie goes. And I mean, that's another thing too. I mean, in Jamaica, when you go to a party, the party goes till all wee hours of the morning. It ends when the last person leaves. Here, you definitely have a curfew cutoff time. And then after that, even if the club's still full, sorry, uh, very punctual here, very straight.
So, um, what do you miss the most about Jamaica?
Oh, where do I start? um, I would say the most, I would say the food, because the food that you get here is so different. I mean, most of the ingredients, anyway, that you would need to cook a Jamaican meal, are not available here. If you are lucky and you go to an Indian shop, you will find, some ingredients that you recognize from home. Maybe in the Chinese shop as well. Um, but it's really difficult to get your hands on food that you love from home. So I would say the top thing is the food.
Okay, so Enza, be specific now. What you miss? Your
Mhm.
patty? Is it your ackee and saltfish? What is the one food you miss then?
The
I'm trying to
one.
set listen, I'm trying to set you up here now. I'm trying to say, listen, anybody viewing this, Enza
Oh.
needs some patties. So when you're making your stop there, you need to stop
Mhm.
and get that. What I don't know if it's patties you need. You may say,
Yeah.
"Man, I need
Can I name more than one, or am I only allowed one?
you could do two or three.
Right. So I was saying that patties, yes, and then jerk chicken for sure. Because I always say whenever I get back to Jamaica, the very first thing before I do anything else, once I get out the airport, the next stop, jerk chicken,
The pan,
and
the
then
pan,
everything
the
else
pan,
can happen.
the pan chicken, the pan jerk chicken.
Yeah, exactly. Mhm.
So, um, what advice would you have for anyone who says, you know what, I'm thinking of making a move to Switzerland and come there to live and work? What
Mhm.
advice would you give anyone if they were thinking of doing that?
Um, Well, I would say, first of all, try to learn a bit of the language beforehand. Because even though, you get by with English um, pretty well, because you'll find that many people want to practice their English. So, you can um, get by with English. However, um, if you want to work and so on, then it's really necessary to be able to speak the language. So I would start to get my head around that beforehand. Secondly, probably try to read up as much as you can on the culture, just how people are in different situations, because it is quite different to the way we do things. And not that you get, a culture shock when you arrive. I would say those are probably the two things that you should do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And may I add this? Bring the warm clothes.
Yes. Although, depending where you are, I mean, in Basel, we tend to have mild winters.
Okay.
So, you don't need these big jackets and things normally, but with all the things changing now, you're not quite sure what's going to happen. But yes, obviously, think it's not tropical. We have seasons, and and another thing that's really good here, of course, is the security. It's a really safe place. Crime rate is really really low, and something like 2%. So when you hear on the news, they had to go rescue a cat out of a tree, then okay, the world is good. Okay, it's like a bubble. It's like a bubble.
And I appreciate you spending some time with us to tell us your story and telling us how you got to Switzerland and a little bit about the Swiss people. And any closing thoughts? And also, can you teach us how to say goodbye in the German, Swiss, or Swiss German way?
Okay. So closing thoughts. Yeah, but I would just say in general, that no matter where you, as a Jamaican, no matter where you may be, it's just really important to try to keep that bit of your culture and your people, and in as close to your heart as possible, because I think this is what helps to keep you sane in those moments where we're in those difficult moments. Yeah. And how to say goodbye in Swiss German. Okay, it's Auf Wiedersehen.
Ah,
Auf,
wait,
auf,
auf,
wieder,
wieder,
Luege.
luege.
Yeah,
Auf, wieder, luige. I won't say
almost,
it again.
almost. Auf Wiedersehen.
Enza, auf, wir, de ludige. Blessings. Thank you. And again, thanks for spending the time with us.
No problem. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Show some love now. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss a video.